So can a single tweet actually crash the stock market? It sounds kind of like something out of a movie, right? But believe it or not, this question became terrifyingly real, and it's driven years and years of research. Let's dig in.
Okay, so picture this. It's April 23rd, 2013, and this message just drops. And this wasn't from some random account. No, this came from the Associated Press's official, verified Twitter account. You know, a source that everyone trusts, and I mean everyone, including all those automated trading algorithms. So for a few critical minutes, yeah, the world absolutely believed it was real.
So what happened in those few minutes? Before anyone could figure out, hey, this account was hacked, this is fake news, the S&P 500 just cratered. We're talking a loss of $121 billion in value. That is just an insane number. To put it another way, that's more than $1.6 billion lost for every single letter in that fake tweet. Wild. So this wasn't just a momentary panic, a flash in the pan. It was a massive wake-up call. It proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that information on social media, whether it's true or false, can have these huge, real-world financial consequences. And, it got a lot of very smart people asking a really important question. And that question is this: can we actually find real, usable financial signals in all that noise? I mean, think about it. You've got 500 million tweets flying around the internet every single day. That's the challenge that researchers William Sanger and Thierry Warren set out to answer. They wanted to see if you could really separate the valuable stuff from, just random internet chat.
Right, so how would you even go about testing something like that? How do you figure out if the collective voice of Twitter can actually predict where the stock market is going? Well, the researchers came up with a pretty clever way to tackle the problem.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. It's all about how they sliced the data. They basically made two different piles. In one pile, you have what they called financial tweets. These are the ones that use the company's stock ticker, like SAPL for Apple. It's kind of like a secret handshake for traders and people who are really into finance. Then, in the other pile, you have non-financial tweets, just everyday people talking about Apple. The big idea here was that maybe who is doing the talking is just as important as what they're talking about.
So they crunched the numbers. I mean, they analyzed mountains and mountains of data, comparing the volume of these two types of tweets against how the stocks actually performed. And what do you know? A really clear pattern started to pop out.
It turns out that when the number of those ticker-specific financial tweets for a company started to climb on any given day,
it was directly linked to that company's stock doing better overnight. Pretty cool, right? In other words, an increase in discussion among this financially savvy crowd seemed to actually predict a rise in the stock price when the market opened the next day.
But what about that other group? The general chatter, the tweets just mentioning Apple or Google. Well, turns out there was no reliable link to stock returns at all. So the signal wasn't just in the total number of tweets. No, the real signal was hidden in the specific conversations coming from that more financially informed crowd.
This whole experiment is a perfect real-world example of one of the biggest challenges in finance today, and that's just dealing with all the different kinds of data out there. It really forces us to stop and think about what we're actually looking at.
The tweets in this study are a classic example of what's called unstructured data. Now, forget about nice, neat spreadsheets. This kind of data is messy. It's text, it's images, videos, online reviews. It's all the chaotic, jumbled-up information that really makes up most of our digital world.
So, let's break that down. Structured data is the stuff we're all used to seeing, right? Daily stock prices, company earnings reports, information that fits perfectly into the neat rows and columns of a database. Unstructured data is, well, it's everything else. And learning how to make sense of that mess, that's the new frontier.
in finance, there's this big principle called KYC, Know Your Customer. Well, to deal with this new world of data, we kind of need a similar idea, KYD, or Know Your Data. The bottom line is, before you can trust the insights you get from any data, structured or not, you've got to ask some tough questions.
First up, you have to understand its origins. Where did this data even come from? With our Twitter example, it's a public social media platform. Okay, but is it an observable fact, like a stock trade that actually happened? Or is it just an opinion? And was it cleaned up? I mean, the researchers had to filter out tons of bots and spam. You can never just assume the raw data is perfect.
Next, you need to dissect the data's properties, almost like a scientist in a lab. Is it quantitative, like the number of likes on a tweet? Or is it qualitative, like the actual words in the tweet? Is a stock price continuous? It can be any number. Or is it categorical, like a credit rating? AAA is a category, not just a number you can do math with. Understanding these properties is absolutely what allows you to process raw information and turn it into something valuable. Okay, so let's bring this all back to our original question about Twitter and the stock market. After all this analysis, What was the final verdict from the researchers?
And this right here is the key takeaway. Unstructured data from social media is valuable, for sure. It gives us a new layer of information, an evolution in how we see the market. But, and this is a big but, it isn't a crystal ball. It's not a revolution. It doesn't replace traditional financial data. It adds to it. It's just one more signal in all that noise. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought. We started with stock prices, then we moved to analyzing text and tweets. Today, AI is getting incredibly good at analyzing images, audio, even video, all on a massive scale. So what's next? What currently overlooked source of messy, unstructured data is about to become the next big signal that changes our world?